This is Professor Melanie Hildebrandt. In this video, I'm going to continue looking at concepts from Chapter 7 on global markets. In the last video, we looked at a closed economy and then the impact of free trade on that economy. In this example, we'll start there looking at the closed domestic economy, impact of free trade, and then the impact on trade once we have a tariff in place. So suppose the domestic market that we're looking at is the U.S. market for sugar. And so if this was a closed economy in the United States, we would be at our market equilibrium, and the price of sugar would be 20 cents per pound, and the equilibrium quantity would be 45 million pounds of sugar. Now in that larger market, out in the rest of the world, when we look at the global demand and global supply of sugar, we see that world price is 10 cents per pound. So unlike the last example, this time the world price is lower than the domestic price, and so that's going to have an impact here, a different impact. Sugar is sugar, and so if the world price is 10 cents, then that is going to be the price of sugar in the U.S. market. U.S. consumers, if they can buy sugar from another country for 10 cents per pound, then they're not going to buy the domestic sugar at any price greater than 10 cents per pound. So U.S. firms are going to have to decrease their price to 10 cents as well. And so if that's the case, and price in the domestic market falls to 10 cents per pound, then our quantity demanded of sugar would increase to 70 million pounds, but our quantity supplied of sugar would drop to 20 million. So quantity demanded, 70, quantity supplied, 20. And so in our domestic market, we would have a shortage of 50 million pounds of sugar. Well, is it going to stay that way? We're going to have consumers who just don't have any sugar? No, we have free trade right now. So thanks to free trade, we will import in 50 million pounds of sugar. So notice, before I go any further here, because the world price here was lower than the U.S. price, this means that the rest of the world has the comparative advantage, in producing sugar, not the United States, because our price was higher. Now suppose that the U.S. government decides to impose a tariff. So a tariff is simply a tax on imports, And so this tax is going to be 5 cents per pound of sugar. Now, the only firms that have to pay the tariff are the importing firms, so the firms in other countries. But this will effectively raise the price of sugar in the U.S. market to 15 cents per pound, because U.S. firms can now charge that price too, because that's what consumers are paying for the imported sugar. And so, trust me, they will then increase their price. So now let's see what this does to our quantity demanded and our quantity supplied in the domestic market. So now quantity demanded is 60 million pounds and quantity supplied is 30. So we still have a shortage here, but it's not as great. Right now the shortage is only 30 million pounds of sugar. So what has happened here? I'm going to label some things on the graph, A, B, C, and D. So this entire area here of A, B, C, D, all of this represents the loss of consumer surplus. So I'm going to analyze this. loss of consumer surplus. So consumers in the United States are now having to pay a higher price for less sugar, right? We're now consuming a lower amount of sugar, but we're paying a higher price for it, okay? Of these areas, Area A, we lose to the firms. So this represents an increase in producer surplus. Okay. Area C, so this area right here, I'll talk about it more in just a second. This is going to be an increase in government revenue. And B and D we call net welfare loss. Okay, it's a net welfare loss. Another group that loses out here, notice that we're still going to have imports. Okay, so we still have a shortage. So we're going to import in these 30 million pounds of sugar. But previously we were importing 50 million pounds of sugar. So the foreign producers of sugar are also losers in this case. The last thing we can do here is we can calculate the amount of the increase in revenue. Okay, so this increase in government revenue here, we can actually calculate this amount. And the amount is simply the tariff, so the 5 cents, times the amount of imports, the 30 million. Again, I said it was this area C right here. We'll notice that the height of this rectangle is the tariff, 15 cents minus 10, and then the span here is the amount that we are importing in, the 60 minus 30, or 30 million. So the increase in government revenue, again, is the tax or tariff times the quantity of imports. So in this problem, it is 5 cents times 30 million pounds of sugar, or the government sees an increase in revenue of $1.5 million.